This is easily the funniest book in my entire collection, and I'm comparing that to a few George Carlin books. If you're a fan of Yahtzee's video game review show, Zero Punctuation, you'll definitely enjoy this book. Unlike his show, however, there's plenty of punctuation to be found. I'm so sorry for that. Mogworld tells the story of Jim, a fledgling mage in an ancient land who was killed early in his academy days by a rival college, then raised as a zombie decades later by a semi-competent necromancer. Wanting nothing more than to relax in heaven, from which he was so rudely torn away, Jim then spends the entire story trying to die, but discovers that he can't due to forces beyond his control. Yes, this whole plot follows a zombie on a suicide quest. This is the most macabre story I've read in a long while, and I love it. Mogworld was published in 2010 and was the first novel by Ben Yahtzee Croshaw. For those asking, yes, I do hope to read his second novel, Jam. For those unfamiliar with his style, Yahtzee routinely casts himself as this bitter, sarcastic critic who's rarely satisfied. That same cynical nature comes through in Jim, who tried leaping from the tallest tower in the Necromancer's castle within his first day of being raised. However, when he lands and dies, angels swarm him and force his soul back into his mangled corpse. You see, something happened to the land years ago that made dying impossible. People just respawn in brand new bodies at a graveyard or a church, then go on with their lives. Though a great many people find that decades of living like this is growing tedious. So now, Jim's quest to find a way to permanently die begins, while being forced to investigate what happened to stop death and maybe return it to the world. Did I mention this story was weird? Venturing forth, Jim leaves the Necromancer's castle with two more of the recently unkilled. Meryl, the overly enthusiastic assistant zombie with a heart of gold, follows Jim around, fixing his body after his multiple death experiences, hoping to gain an ally in a revolution that ended 50 years ago. The next is Thaddeus, a very religious priest who believes that all zombies are a blight upon the Lord's world. He follows Jim around to help Jim die, if only to rid the land of one more zombie, conveniently ignoring the fact that he is also undead. These characters are both used to great comedic effect as well as dramatic effect later in the book, but they're not the only ones. Jim meets and tolerates many people along his journey. Joining his unlikely band of, well, not heroes, is Slippery John, an inept thief who probably knows more than he's letting on. He's the most active in Jim's party who isn't either dead or catatonic, and works as an adventurer for hire, like so many others. Fighting against Jim and company is Barry, a priest who the angels imbued with incredible power, seemingly at random. Barry follows the word of someone calling himself God, and goes on his own quest to bring a new religion to the world and to stop Jim specifically. Barry is insanely dangerous with incredible magic, but is thick enough that he's not invincible. Perhaps my favorite of the side characters would be the aptly named Mr. Wonderful, the happiest, most psychotic, serial-killingest assassin ever. If they ever make a movie out of this book, I call dibs on playing this guy. Mr. Wonderful is one of the many who are tired that death has left the world and longs for the day when his murder sprees once again matter. And he's completely crazy. At one point, he kills himself, resurrects, then starts eating parts from his recently killed body. Again, this story is weird. I would be seriously remiss if I didn't talk about some of the comedy in this book. From the subtle to the absurd, Yahtzee delivers. Some jokes are simple, like after yet another death when Jim finds himself without any eyeballs face down on a sandy beach for weeks, and others will have you burst out laughing. You'll return to the pages not just to see where the plot takes you, but to see what the next joke is. It's always a great sign when a book can do that for you. I'm probably late in getting to this point, but the land of Mogworld is your basic medieval fantasy with dragons, heroes, and magic. Adventurers go on quests, villains like the Necromancer and the zombie horde raid towns, and shopkeepers rebuild their shops after said raids. And they do this through a number of different methods, but most useful and most apparent would be magic. As Jim shows us, spells are cast through powerful words which can be taught if you're smart enough, or sold in shops if you're rich enough. Jim starts out as a very low-level mage, able to cast only very basic, nearly useless spells, but he's clever enough to use them effectively. His solutions sometimes come at a price, but watching him outsmart bigger, stronger enemies is always fun. Oh, and before anyone brings it up in the comments section, I'm skipping the early twist because I think it's more fun to discover that on your own. Overall, Mogworld is an absolute page-turner, well worth the read. The characters are great, the jokes are hilarious, the plot is interesting and exciting, the world is strangely refreshing despite it being something we've seen before, and I really don't have any negative things to say. I loved this book! I'd even go so far as to say this book is just shy of an instant classic, falling short because it doesn't really have any cultural impact, it's strictly written for fun. Yes, I'm being a snob, sue me. Still, this book has definitely earned a spot on my top shelf. Seriously, buy a copy and check it out. So, have you read the book? What did you think? If not, do you want to read it now? Whatever your thoughts, comment below and stay tuned for more.